welcome. I'm Peggy, and I welcome you today into our kitchen. And yes, we don't have food, not today, but we have food for the soul because we're going to talk about flowers and gardens and all the things. If you're like I am, you are tired of winter. And I want to say welcome to the sunshine and the warmth and to see things grow again. And it seems like it has been a very long winter to many people. And I want to welcome somebody who's bringing a breath of spring. And I love your apron. And we're just having a good time. Susan Temple is here. Now, Susan is a master gardener. And when she came with these things, I thought, oh, where is the beauty?
Not much to look at, is it?
Oh, and I love your apron.
Thank you. This is my Master Gardener uniform.
And she has all her badges on. That's great. That's great. Ask me about my garden. And everybody, I think, even everybody wants to have something alive.
Yep.
If you live in an apartment, you can still have a container with something in it.
Have a pretty pot of something sitting on your patio.
That's important. And what in the world? Tell me.
Well, people will say that you can't grow peonies in the South. That is not true. You just have to know how to plant them and take care of them.
Now, why is that? Is it too warm?
Yeah, they do need winter chill. So, you know, if we have a winter where it's not very cold, it does make it more difficult for them to bloom. But I have probably 100 peonies in my yard. So it's possible. You just have to.
Tell us how.
Well,
what
people probably, I would say the biggest mistake is they plant them too deep. And if they're too deep, they won't bloom. So these are what are called the eyes. All these little pink roots. This dies back to the ground every winter. So this is the new growth, and this is where the flowers will come from for next year. But when I replant this, all of these eyes will be above the ground.
So you think that's a mistake people make, that they're too deep?
Yeah. Yeah, they think they've got to bury all of this, you know, 2, 3, 6 inches, however deep, and that's not how you do it. Err on the side of having them too shallow, because all of this right here will be above the ground when I plant it.
All right.
And dig a really big hole. Peonies can live 100 years. So
you mean they'll come back and back if you treat them right?
Yep, and they will get bigger and bigger every year. On average, they're probably 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide, but I have one of my grandmother's peonies, and it's probably this big around. And these roots actually are kind of small as far as peonies go, because hers, when she gave me part of hers, when I dug it up, the main roots on it were probably as big around as my wrist. And she said it was probably, had been in her yard about 50 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was one of the first things she ever planted.
And what's that?
Well, this one is a tree peony. So this is what the fancy word is, herbaceous perennial, meaning it dies all the way back to the ground every year. And tree peonies, they can be a little more tricky to grow. They aren't as easy as these. But this grows like a shrub. It'll get to be probably 4 or 5 feet tall and about 4 feet wide. And it does not die back to the ground every year. You can tell the difference. See these stems, and then it puts out from the stem like a hydrangea or spirea or, you know, any other kind of shrub. Whereas this will die all the way back.
So they're both the same family.
Yeah. And, you know, in the plant world, we have the family, roses, all these that are in families. Peony is the only plant that's in its family.
Well, why is it people say, well, you can't grow these in our area? You know, forget about it. They won't work.
They plant them too deep, and then they mulch them. You know, we're supposed to mulch our plants to preserve the moisture and keep them cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Every fall, I go through and rake off all of the mulch, the leaves that have fallen, everything on my peonies, so they are cold in the winter. So they get that chill time that they need to bloom.
Rule number one, you don't dig the hole too deep.
Right. You dig a really good big hole. When this gets replanted, it'll be in
You need it wide, but
yeah,
not deep.
Not deep. No. And I'll mulch it for the summer, but then come fall of the year, after all of the foliage has died, and the foliage is gonna get kind of brown and ratty looking. But you have to live with that because that's part of how the plant's getting nourishment for next year. Like daffodils, you got to let that foliage die. But then after it's, when it begins to cool off and we can go back outside, September-ish, then I go through, I cut all the old foliage off and pull all the mulch off of it. And then after, when the leaves have fallen and that sort of stuff, this is one of the first things I do in early spring. I go out and start looking for the peonies, and I've kind of ruffle around.
What is the normal time that we could anticipate having blooms?
May, Mother's Day. Grandmother's is always blooming at Mother's Day, which I think is appropriate.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Now, I have to show this. You brought this in a basket this is part of South Carolina's heritage.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Tell us about your basket.
Take my piece of material out of there. My husband and I collect sweetgrass baskets, and that's what the Gullah ladies down Charleston, Beaufort, Edisto
beautiful.
make.
Let's look at that.
And, God, we've got probably 60. This is one of the biggest ones. And this one has been repaired. But
this is a part of our history.
Yeah, that's dying because the youngsters...
They're not going to be so easy to come by.
Right, the youngsters aren't...
The younger people
they don't
coming
care about,
on, they don't bother making them.
Yeah, and this basket is old, and it's signed on the bottom by the lady who made it.
Oh.
This is a Martha Graddick basket.
That's a treasure.
Yes.
And so she came in here with these ugly roots in this beautiful basket.
In my pretty basket. I had to fix up my basket.
Now we have a picture of what we are anticipating, if we can put it up, of peonies. Are these yours or?
Well, this is a picture that this will grow up to be that.
See, only God could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
To take something this ugly and that is absolutely gorgeous.
And if you grow peonies, you're going to have to stake them as well, because you can tell by our picture how the blossoms kind of fall over.
Yeah.
They're really heavy. I mean, they'll be,
so what do you do? You
big as a softball or bigger. When I plant peonies, I go ahead and plant a tomato cage, and I leave that tomato cage there all the time. First off, so I don't come along in the wintertime and forget that it's there and step on it. And then when it starts sprouting every year, I just guide it up through that tomato cage like you would a tomato. And it holds up the blossoms.
And it helps because they are so heavy.
They are very heavy. They will not stand up unless they're staked.
But they will come back year after year after year if you do it right.
Yep. And multiply and get bigger and bigger every year.
Now, you are a master gardener.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have a master gardener's, I don't know if you call it a chapter, or what, in every county in our state, I think.
Best I know, yeah. Some of the more rural places may not, but yeah, each county.
And what do you do? What does it mean to be a master gardener?
It means that you have taken a course that is, give or take, 6 months, and passed a test and done 40 hours of volunteer work.
So, I mean, it's a commitment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Clemson University here in the upstate has something to do with it.
Yeah, it is through Clemson University.
But you don't have to physically go to Clemson to become a master gardener.
No.
you know, people have asked about that.
They're at the extension office, so here in
Okay.
Greenville, it would be at what I still call Bell Tower Mall.
Yeah, but anywhere you may be,
Mm-hmm.
there will be a Master Gardeners program. And even if you're not in South Carolina, if you check it out, you will find a Master Gardener. And then you take the course and you have to commit to give back to the community, which is
Yes.
what you're doing
Yes.
right now.
Yes, this is part of what is called the education hours. So, which I took the course in 2006, so I've long completed my 40-hour commitment. But now, if you want to remain an active member, you have to do 20 hours of education and 10 hours of continuing education to be
Okay.
an active member, and you have to do that each year.
So now this is your specialty, peonies. I mean, that's your love.
Well,
but
yeah,
you do
because-
other programs as well. What?
Hydrangeas and organic fertilizer and drought-tolerant plants.
And you actually go into schools and wherever and do these programs.
Yeah, the Greenville Master Gardeners have courses routinely at libraries here in town. So I do a lot of stuff at the Malden Library branch. I'll be there next month doing the drought tolerant.
Okay, there's a lot to learn, and there are many people out there, like I am, who are a novice, and they'd like to grow something, and they're kind of afraid. They pull back. We'll be back.